pattern. So all of his obstruents were affected. Once I knew that, then I was able to really kind of teach him about stops and teach him about fricatives and teach him about those placements. It doesn't matter if he's 3 or 4 and shouldn't be able to produce an SH or an S yet. He can't produce any sound that has any sort of constriction. So my job is to teach him constriction, to teach him that feature of the sounds. Okay, got off on a tangent. Okay, I think that's all about that one. Okay, fronting. This one, and all of them actually, if you really, I know it sounds like it's a lot of information at once, and I do realize there's a lot of like details that we're going into, but really try and let the name of the phonological process guide you into what it's actually doing. So weak syllable deletion, the weak syllable in the word is deleted. Fronting. The sounds that should be made in the back of the mouth are fronted, are moved towards the front of the mouth. So try to let the vocabulary of the name of the process help you, and don't fight it. Don't try and say like, I don't know what's happening here, is it this, I'm trying to memorize it in this way. Try to really let it help guide you, because that's why they were named that way for a reason. So they actually they're pretty transparent in terms of what they're representing. So try and let that help you. So these are when velar sounds or palatal sounds are replaced by a front consonant, usually alveolar, sometimes bilabial, but it's usually alveolar. So in this example, go becomes do. Go is produced in the back of the mouth. Do is produced in the front of the mouth. Ki becomes ti. Shu becomes su. This is palatal fronting. I also don't have a preference if you say velar fronting and palatal fronting, or if you just say fronting. I'll get the idea. I'll know what you mean. So they may be differentiated. You'll see them written as differentiated, but it's the same idea. So it's fine by me if you just call it fronting.
Is there a case, I realize go becomes do because they're both voiced, and Q becomes T because they're both voiceless, but is there ever a case where go would become toe?
Yes. And so that would be several processes. That would be this one, but also one we haven't talked about yet, which is prevocalic voicing. So if go becomes toe, then it's fronting the sound, but also devoicing the initial consonant. So there's two things happening there. So yeah.
Do you usually see it in a lot of these sounds, or is it possible that you just see like he always becomes the sound?
Oh, so it's usually if there's a delay, like a true delay that you're seeing the child for, it's usually a pretty consistent pattern across the manner or across the place. So it is usually pretty consistent. But you will see in normal development, it get to a point where a child has the K sound in every position for every word except for their name, or except for the dog's name, or except for the word like key or car. So they may just hold on to like one or two little ones. And in those situations, you wouldn't pick up that child for therapy. If they're just saying T for key, but have the K sound in every other situation.
So I was asking, like, do they front all of those sounds, or is it possible that they just do certain ones?
Yeah, both are true. So it can be the case that they just do K, but it does usually affect the whole manner or place, depending on which it is. For this one, it's manner, but place. So it usually does affect the whole class, but it can be the case that you would have a child just, and so some people would argue if it's just like SH becomes S, that it's articulation and not phonology, because it's just one speech sound error as opposed to a pattern across the class. So that's another way to think of it. That's also kind of where I get caught up in, like, does it matter as much? We know what the child's doing and we know how to fix it, but yes, it can become both ways. It can also be like just the velar sounds are affected and the palatal sounds aren't. We would still call that fronting. Definitely part of normal development. A lot of kids do this. Usually results in some quite unfortunate new words, or attempts at words, depending on what kind of pets they have. Usually assimilated by age 3.5. And this is a substitution process, so they're substituting one sound for another. Okay, how are we doing? Are you feeling like this is a lot of information for everyone? Let me see. We do have quite a few more typical ones to get through, and we're at 7:26. Let's do 2 more, and then we'll stop. Okay. gliding. So this is when a prevocalic liquid, so a liquid that happens before the vowel, so prevocalic, before the vowel, when a liquid before the vowel is replaced by a glide. This can occur in singletons, so in like R as in rain becomes wane, but also in clusters, so do I have an example here to help me? Or like street becomes street. So it can be any glide, doesn't have to be wa, although that's probably the more common. You can also see ya. I very rarely saw ya substituted for the sound, but it does happen. It actually sounds incredibly, it makes the child sound very unintelligible when they're doing ya instead of so this can be, so liquids are L and R, glides are w and y, and so it's when you have those substituted. So love becomes wuv or yuv, blue becomes boo. You might also hear this called liquid gliding or liquid simplification. I'm fine with whatever you call it. These are all synonymous. I think gliding is the easiest, so that's what I'll use. But if you were taught either of these, that's fine with me. This is such a common one. So many kids do this. This is probably one that you're familiar with just based on maybe your own development or the development of kids that you've been around. And usually this is a later one, so most of the other ones we've reviewed so far, we've said 3 or 3.5 for them to be assimilated. This one is 4. Very common in phonologically impaired children. In fact, this is the one that I see persist the most into like elementary school. So a lot of kids continue to do this into kindergarten, first grade, and then sometimes into and beyond. Yeah.
So since it's defined as pre-vocalic liquid, would a post-vocalic liquid
It's not gliding.
be abnormal?
No, but we don't call it gliding.
Okay.
Yeah. So gliding is definitely prevocalic. And it's a liquid being replaced by a glide. So it's not the case that if another class of phonemes is replaced by a glide, that it's gliding. This is only liquids replaced by glides. Not stops, not fricatives, just liquids. We'll practice all these too. So we'll have cases that we'll talk about, and we'll practice these. We'll practice transcribing these. We'll practice going through speech samples and finding out what the pattern is. So I know it's a lot, but we will go through it. We'll talk about your quizzes each week. We'll have some sort of phonological process, maybe across all the sentences, maybe a different one in each sentence. We'll talk about what the patterns look like or what they are.
Sorry, I think I missed this in the beginning. So we have a quiz every week.
No, there's 4 quizzes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's 4 quizzes. So you will take the quiz, and then the next week we'll review the quiz from the week before.
Okay.
So there will be several weeks of taking quizzes and reviewing them, and then only the top 3 grades of the quizzes are taken. So it's 4 quizzes, and I dropped the lowest. Yeah. I guess we didn't really talk about the syllabus, did we? That's one of the downfalls of having seen you guys already halfway through the semester. Maybe we'll do that next time. Sorry. Okay, let's do stopping, and then we'll stop. Ah, that's really poetic. Okay, so this is when a fricative or affricate is replaced by a stop. So this is another substitution process. Most common in the word initial position, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive to the word initial position, but it is the most common. So the place of articulation stays the same. It's the manner that changes. So sun becomes tun, thumb becomes tum, zoo becomes do. So we're also seeing voicing stay the same here. So place stays the same, voicing stays the same. If anything else, if any of those 2 change, if voicing changes or if place changes, it's also another process. So when it's just this, just the manner changing, it's stopping. Feet becomes peat, base becomes bait, or base, either way. So this is initial consonant only, this is both. Shoe becomes two, chew becomes two. This is, you'll also hear deaffrication. I pretty much don't talk about deaffrication unless it's just the affricates affected. If it's both fricatives and affricates affected, I say stopping. You'll hear people, it's not wrong to say that it's stopping and deaffrication because if they're removing the affrication feature, then it is, of course, deaffrication. But I think it's just easier to call it all one process. Unless a child is just, like if only their affricates are affected. So if just ch and j are affected, then it's deaffrication. You can also call that stopping as well, but I think it's more specific because it's only 2 sounds. It's a subset of stopping. Chew becomes chew, or jaw becomes daw. This begins to assimilate around age 3, but can definitely continue with later developing sounds like S and Z. And this is incredibly common in phonologically impaired children, so we see a lot of this. And those of you who have worked with phonologically impaired children so far, have you seen this one? Yeah? Are there other processes that you've seen what you're doing, either in your placements or in clinic?
Sorry. Well,
or whatever.
Okay, this is an atypical one.
That's fine.
Backing.
Okay, yeah, so that's the opposite of fronting. The front sounds become back sounds. So you have seen that one? It's tricky. It is very tricky. And it's very unusual, so it's a disorder because it's not something that doesn't happen in normal development. So for all the atypical ones, no matter when you see that happen, because they're not part of normal development, no matter how old a kid is, they should be seen for therapy.
And sounds for child.
So doing SH for CH?
Treasure for treasure.
Oh, interesting. So that would be,
Because it's technically it's a T, but you say it child.
right, yeah, totally.
Or wash for watch.
Yeah. That would be, I think that might be what a class that we'll get to, which is an idiosyncratic error, which is, it doesn't really fit into a category. Which it's not a huge deal for them to not fit into a category, because remember these are man-made categories. These are patterns that we see in development that are common, but they're not the only patterns that can exist, that will exist, that do exist. They're common, they're helpful because they're common patterns that we do see, but it's definitely not, I mean, we'll see things outside of these. So I think the pros and cons of them, the pros are that they are a helpful pattern that does tell us whether or not this is something that's typical or atypical in development, but the cons are that people get very caught up in this being something like it has to fit into one of the patterns that's in my book. And that's not the case. Like, kids are kids and they do all kinds of weird things, and it doesn't have to follow a pattern. And as long as you can analyze the pattern, figure it out, select targets appropriately, and provide appropriate treatment, that's really what matters at the end of the day. But these are helpful along the way in just kind of conceptualizing how sounds change across place and across voice and across manner. So something else that I'll ask you to do whenever we're talking about your quizzes, whenever we're evaluating them together and talking about transcription, is not just what process happened, but what changed. How is that, if you did the practice exercise 1, that was posted on Canvas, which is not a requirement, but there's a practice exercise that has, labeling phonemes and then identifying their place, voice, manner, and then it has, what is changing if we change sun to ton. Is it place, is it voice, is it manner, or is it multiple ones of those? I do have an answer sheet for that, so I'll post that on Canvas for you. Okay, so it'll be easy for me to remember where we stopped, because we stopped there. And then we'll finish typical processes, and we'll get into atypical processes, possibly Tuesday. Let's hope. So we don't have class Monday because Emerson is closed, and Emerson is using Tuesday. This was planned before any of the snow days. Is using Tuesday for the Monday schedule. So we have class next week, Tuesday, in this room at this time. Questions? Yeah.
I know we had an email recently on the snow day topic being like, Emerson, how would you use this calendar?
Yeah.
Is that going to affect our meeting time from now on, assuming any more or less for the more snow days?
If there's more snow days, it probably will. We'll probably have to use a day if we lose another one. At this point, because I was awesome and forgot I didn't include the midterm in my point value, which in a way was good, and I went to Dan and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Do I add points to and add a midterm? And he's like, no. If it's not even counted in your points, get rid of it. So that gave us a whole extra week, which was good, and also relieved some of the pressure of like cramming all this information in before the midterm. And so I'm totally fine with that, and we'll still practice and do all that kind of stuff. If we lose another day, we'll probably have to use one of the days they recommended, which I think was like May something. But as we stand, I think we'll be okay. Yeah.
We'd also got something today about the final schedule change.
That will change because that changed for everybody. So I think we were, I don't remember what we were. I think we were maybe May 4th, and now it's May 6th. But
the new one is.
we'll have to follow that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, And I think that affects like intercession and everything too, because it's kind of pushing everything back. So it changes a lot. I know. I have travel plans, so I'm like, this is a big deal. But yeah, so the final will change, but I think we will be okay to be on schedule, because this week and next week we're kind of like finishing up phonological processes and starting to talk about assessment, and we'll finish this up at the beginning of next class and move into assessment. So I think we're on track, especially for getting that midterm week back. Sorry about that. It's so ridiculous. So yes, I think we'll be okay. But if not, I mean, if we lose another day, we'll probably have to think about adding something. But as we said, I think we're good. Good? Happy birthday, Allie.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not taking pizza home. So there are 2 pizzas left, plus these pieces. So if someone wants to take a whole pizza, if you want to split up pieces, make your roommates or partner happy, please take pizza home.
And if anyone wants to go out drinking, we are. You're ready to go.
I was hoping you guys were going out after this. I'm so glad with it. I've been talking for like 6 hours. Yeah, so
Adios. Those are hard to all those. Okay, so we like the whole bag. There's some left.
no. But you know, part of the reason I did it is because I can only eat so many because in my mouth it hurts.
I know.
So do you guys like the Delta chips?
Oh, I do like.
Okay, I haven't tried them because I don't use them.
It's amazing.
They are like top favorite.
Me too. Yeah.
Have you had the local Korean? Well, they have that like, I don't know what
Okay.
really good. They're in like the fresh cheese.
Okay. So is it the salt and vinegar kind or the pickle kind? Is it salt and vinegar or is it pickle? Okay. Oh, pickle and chips. You sure? Chocolate. Allie, are you going directly out or can you take a pizza? Do you want me to? Well,
I was hoping to go on a test.
no. If you're going to take a pizza, it's not real. We'll make someone else take those with them.
Kelly, we can also put it in the fridge up here. Oh, but the whole
Well,
weekend.
it's the weekend, so that's why I was thinking.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's a long weekend too.
Jody! That was Jody!
It would make you feel better if you're going home.
Yeah.
Go home.
But I have
Unless you want to go out right now.
to get together.
It's a long
I guess it should
It hit me at like there's things that are like biological issues that we need to work through. I would love to use that
Do you have to go upstairs?
Yes.
Ayaka, I'm just gonna go get my coat.
Yeah, sure. I'm in the restroom too, so I'll meet you downstairs.
Sounds good.
Wait, how do you?
People should take pictures.
If you don't learn
I got her.
Oh my God.
I like that.
We already know that.
right.
Oh, Sunday service suspended.
Well, it is because it's just so it's like a
Right?
you know what I mean? No. I appreciate you telling me this, but let me know what this is. It's such a bizarre. I'm going to be practicing my using legs. They're like, yeah, please do. And then we'll just, and they're like, weird and like, yeah. Like, wait until you're 8 months.
too.